Now, what I suggest is that we continue the program. So we will take the second topic now, and hopefully we can also come back on the supply chain issue a little bit later. The second topic on our agenda is about managing your global TCO, and that, of course, in a volatile environment. We all know, ladies and gentlemen, that lately there have been a series of events that probably have also had an impact on the total cost of ownership of your fleet. We have seen, of course, that there are surging energy prices. There is also an increase of the interest rates. There are, of course, the supply chain issues, and that makes it sometimes complex for fleet managers, even global fleet managers, to manage the cost of their global fleet. In this session, we will discuss how global fleet managers are managing the TCO of their global fleet today, what they have done in terms of the current challenges that they see in the market, and how they are going to go forward. I would like to invite with me on stage Guillaume de Subercasaux of Schindler. He has been elected the Global Fleet Manager of the Year about a couple of weeks ago. So when we were in Dublin for the Fleet Europe Summit. And so Guillaume, he knows everything when it comes to managing a global fleet, as Schindler is also a worldwide company, and he is with us today to share some insights about TCO management. My second guest is Zoltán Sziller, who is responsible as the global category leader, fleet mobility and travel at INGKA for everything that has to do with the procurement of fleet travel and mobility at INGKA. And INGKA is the procurement division linked to IKEA, which we all know. Zoltán, welcome. Welcome in this global fleet conference. Also, Guillaume, I hope that you can hear me.
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Perfect. First of all, Guillaume, once again, congratulations with your title as Global Fleet Manager of the Year. Let's start with you. Can you first picture your fleet? So how many vehicles do you manage? In what regions are you today? What kind of vehicles do you have?
Yes, so in Schindler, we have about 21,000 cars, mainly in Europe, with 14,000 cars, then America, 4,000, and then rest of the world, Middle East, Africa, and Asia, 3,000. The cars are 65% vans that we use for our technicians.
Okay, very good. So you have truly a global fleet. Zoltán, we all know IKEA. When we talk about the fleet of IKEA, what do we need to know about that? How many vehicles, in what regions are you active?
Yeah, so basically we have a fleet of 2,600 vehicles covering approximately 35 markets, basically mainly in Europe and North America, and largest markets in Asia Pacific. What we need to see is that 90% of our fleet is coming from Europe at the moment, and mainly passenger car fleet, but we have a focus also on introducing more commercial vehicle fleet in the regions.
Okay. Guillaume, is total cost of ownership a concept I think that we know since the late 90s, the beginning of 2000, etc.? Is that still a valid concept?
Well, in my view, or in the Schindler view, I would say yes at 95%, but there is a 5%. Yes, because when we do a tender, when we take decisions, we always have a breakdown of all the costs, resale value, tires, energy, fuel, electricity cost, etc. So yes, TCO is very important and is valid for all the decisions. But, and that's the 5%, we need to think as well of the total cost of mobility, the TCM, how we move people, how we move goods. To calculate that, we use a TCO, but we need to think the big picture will be TCM in the future.
Okay. Is that the same for you, Zoltán? Do you all already keep in mind also the evolution from, let's say, the total cost of ownership of your fleet towards the total cost of mobility, where you are going to calculate all the costs related to employee mobility within your company?
Definitely, I can agree with what Guillaume was mentioning. As what we can say is that where we or our company has started was a quite scattered setup and approach when it came to fleet management. So basically, using TCO is for us a tool in order to prepare for TCU or TCM as such going forward. Um, in order to identify the right baselines and understand how our fleets are working, TCO is a very significant and relevant tool, and then that's something what we are preparing and using towards TCU and TCM approach.
Mhm. Guillaume, how has the TCO of your fleet changed due to the challenges that we all know, supply chain challenge, energy crisis, war in Ukraine, interest rates increase, etc.?
Well, many changes with the current events, and prices are rising. Everything, the price of the cars, the fuel, the electricity, the services, etc. So, in order to limit the price, and it was commented in Dublin with the leasing companies plus 10, 15, 20%, etc. We have been looking at the TCO, and in order to limit or even to decrease, what we have done is to downsize some of the vans. So we pay less insurance, less tires, less energy, etc. And we try to drive less kilometers. And at the end, there is an impact on the TCO. It's going up. So what do we do in order to limit our cost increase? Drive less. It's very basic, but it's what we have done in Schindler.
Okay, so Zoltán, Guillaume already told us that he sees that the total cost of ownership of his fleet is increasing due to the events that we all know. I can assume that with IKEA, INGKA, this is the same. What can you do? What do you do to tackle the increasing TCO of your fleet on a global level?
Yeah, I mean, here we need to make a separation between, let's say, passenger fleet and then commercial fleet, because obviously when we talk about commercial vehicles, there we need to take into account a lot of other factors rather than just providing a vehicle to the users and let them driving it. So we are aiming to look at the vehicle as of a bigger ecosystem for the commercial piece, and then optimize the relevant parts around the vehicle as like charging.
Also, there is a technical problem with Zoltán apparently, so sorry for that again. It's not the most seamless conference apparently. Luckily, Guillaume de Subercasaux is still with us. There he is. Zoltán, yes.
Can you
The
hear me now?
connection was not good. Yes, the connection was not so good. I hope it's better now.
I can perfectly hear you.
Okay, now it seems better. I will come back to you.
Good.
I first go to Guillaume. Okay, Guillaume. So you already mentioned that TCO is increasing. Is it increasing everywhere? I mean, in Europe, North America, Latin America, APAC, where you have your vehicles, is it increasing at the same pace? Because we can imagine that, for example, in terms of delivery challenges, it might be different, interest rates, it might be different, etc.
So it is increasing everywhere, but the percentage will not be the same. For example, in Asia, we are less impacted than in Europe or in the US. When we look at the TCO, the breakdown of the cost is not the same among all the zones. So yes, we have some increase, but it will depend basically of each of the zones.
What are some of the key differences that you see? Because you were talking about the breakdown of the TCO will not be all the same across all regions. Is there, for example, some of the examples that you can mention where perhaps in North America or in APAC or in Europe things are a little bit higher and in others they are lower?
I mean, when we look at for Schindler, the price of the vehicle in Europe, in the US, has increased a lot. Energy a lot as well. In Europe, mainly. So I would say yes, price of the vehicles mainly yes, US and Europe, energy in Europe. And but I mean, when we look at the other zones, for example, insurance, we are paying much less insurance in Brazil right now. So we need to look at all the components, and sometimes we have some quick wins or some low-hanging fruits.
Okay. How do you see the evolution of the TCO, Zoltán? I think that we have you back in the conference. So we already know that it's increasing. You have a fleet not only in Europe. Do you see main differences across the regions? And what are those differences in terms of TCO?
Yeah, as I said, our main focus was in the previous period on Europe, and we were looking at the fleets in mainly in the European market. However, when it comes to commercial fleets, we are turning more and more attention to North America and also
Mhm.
Asia Pacific markets. And obviously, there the basis where we are starting from is a little bit different because not necessarily we were operating vehicles directly. So when we take an insight on electric,
The connection seems not so good with
then we
Zoltán.
see.
Okay. Zoltán,
Can
your
you?
connection is not so good. I don't know what is happening. Perhaps if you can try to connect again, but without uh, the audio headset, perhaps that works better. I don't know if it's linked to that. I'm going to continue with Guillaume. Guillaume, of course, we see also in some of the regions that there are trends, let's say, in terms of zero emission mobility, electrification, etc. I can imagine that calculating the TCO, the costs for electric vehicles, comes with other challenges than calculating the cost for diesel or petrol vehicles. How do you manage that, or how do you think you are going to manage that?
Well, I mean, that's true. Huh? The cost breakdown of the TCO, even if we have the same components, they are not the same across the different zones. So I always ask the local fleet manager to give some support to help me to understand what is the pattern within the country or within the zone. I always ask as well the leasing companies to give me a clear picture of the TCO. And then, I mean, it's very basic, but we implement KPIs to track all the cost, where it's going up, where it's going down, where we can monitor, and we can have like solutions.
Mhm. How easy is it to implement or to have KPIs all across the regions? Do you have like global KPIs? Do you have them regionally or even locally?
So we have global KPIs. We have many, maybe 20, 25 KPIs about sustainability, about the cost. But what we don't do is to compare a country versus another country because we wanted to do it, but it doesn't make any sense at the end. As we said, Brazil is different as China, as
Mhm.
Australia, or as Belgium. So we have KPIs, we have a good picture, we have good tools in order to track all of them, but we track the KPIs from one month to the other and not always from one country to the other.
Mhm. How do you monitor the total cost of ownership on a global level? We often hear stories that, okay, we have insights in terms of, for example, the leasing cost. Yes, we know things about the fuel cards. And then there are some elements more linked to theoretical data that is given, for example, by car manufacturers. But of course, you would like to have the complete and the actual picture. So, how do you monitor the global TCO?
Well, actually, a good remark. When we look at the CO2 emissions, for example, we don't look at the WLTP from the car manufacturers because we charge the cars, we have weight inside of the trunks. So what we look at will be how many liters we are going to consume or we are consuming, and we are looking at real data. So we know exactly how many CO2 emissions we have per car or per fleet in a country, etc. And we don't look anymore. We used to, but we don't look anymore at the car manufacturers' KPIs or even the leasing companies, but on data. We extract everything, and then internally, thanks to external tools, then we will have our own KPIs.
Okay, so you use external tools to integrate all the data coming from the suppliers, coming from your fleet. Is that correct?
Yes, I mean, today we have several tools. It's in my wish list to have only one tool managing everything. So it's a mix of external, internal, Excel. We are not yet the best managed, but we are looking at it. But yes, we have several tools, internal, external, and we do our own calculation.
Okay, good. Zoltán, welcome again.
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you, yes. It's not optimal, but we can give it one more try, okay?
Yeah,
Um,
I try to do the most common used IT support, switch it off and switch it on again. So
yes,
hope it
that's
works now.
indeed all that I always do as well. Yes, so but we will give it a try. You were saying that in terms of TCO, you have been looking at things in the first instance in Europe. Of course, Europe is not one country. I can imagine that also there are big changes and differences. Can you give some of the examples that you are seeing and how are you dealing with it?
Yeah, of course. I mean, we are experiencing also double-digit changes in percentage when it comes to the TCOs. And if we take, because we have announced a big transformation project to go to zero emission in the next couple of years in terms of all vehicles what we are using in our operations. So we see in some cases, due to the level of availability of different models which fit for the purpose of use, some new models are launching in the market. So from that perspective, we can also experience, for example, in the North American market or potentially in Asia Pacific, where the price tags of different models are decreasing compared to the initial stage of 2 or 3 years ago. So there are movements, I would say, in every dimensions at the moment, and we are following the markets closely in order to find the best and optimal solution for the time being.
Okay, good. Um, are you also opening up, and we continue with Zoltán, and then Guillaume, you can give a reaction as well. Are you also opening up your car policy, for example, to new players, to new car manufacturers, for example, just to tackle that supply chain issue, or perhaps the high price tag of some of the car manufacturers that you are working with? So are you opening to other brands? Zoltán?
Definitely. I mean, how we see the current challenges. Yes, I can hear you, see you.
Yes,
Can you hear me, see me?
yes, oh, yes, yes.
Yeah. So we definitely opening up for a broader supplier base. Basically, as we talk about electrification and zero emission vehicles, model availability is not obviously on the level what we would expect at this stage. So, in order to secure that we have the right vehicle which fits for the purpose of use, we basically have to look at every options available on the market. So yes, we definitely open for any new brands, models, and solutions.
Mhm. And with you and Guillaume at Schindler, is that also one of the options that were looked at and that you have already implemented?
Yes, same as Zoltán. I mean, a few years ago, if you had asked me the question, I would say we are very proud to have 3 or 4 leasing car manufacturers worldwide. And today, I'm saying yes, we are very proud to have maybe 10, 12 car manufacturers. And we are looking at exotic car manufacturers. And when I say exotic, I'm not talking about Far East, but I'm talking about small companies with concept cars because I mean, let's say it. We are desperate to find sometimes electrical cars, electrical vans, etc. And we are looking at everywhere. And uh, yes, we need to be open-minded today, definitely.
Mhm. But if you would like to implement those new car manufacturers, you were talking at the beginning that one of the measures that you have taken is also to downsize, for example, your vans. When introducing new car brands, when going to downsizing, I can imagine that there is also some reluctance within the company, with perhaps some working councils, HR, the employees, etc. Did you encounter that, or did you needed to overcome that, or was it a seamless process, Guillaume?
It was not a seamless process, definitely not. But what we do, we always explain to all the stakeholders the situation. When we talk to finance, to HR, to the field, and to the unions, we always explain and we involve them to tell them, look, we have no choice. If we want to go in the city center and diesel is banned into the city center, then we need to have an electrical car. Or today's cars are not available from these car manufacturers. We need to wait 12 months, or we need to buy another brand. So basically, we explain them. Sometimes they understand. Sometimes we need to involve our management to explain them to them. But it is a long journey.
Okay. Zoltán, I will give it another try. In terms of the TCO, I can also imagine that your company, your top management, has given you a mandate, for example, in terms of cost savings and cost efficiency, yes, with your fleet and the fleet and mobility operations. Now, in the current circumstances, it's probably not so easy to obtain, to achieve these cost savings. Um, were you able to renegotiate those cost saving targets again with your top management?
Well, I would say the first priority, and from that point of view, maybe we are in a little bit more fortunate situation as Guillaume. The first and foremost goal from our perspective is to go zero emission. So heads down and go towards zero emission. It doesn't mean that no matter on what cost. Obviously, that's also part of the consideration. But it's always kind of I would say a balance between uh, uh, the cost
Mhm.
connected to the vehicle and urgency that make it between upgrade and commercial.
Okay, good. And with you, Guillaume, did you go back saying to your top management, well, guys, what you're asking me in terms of cost savings, unfortunately, that will
Steven?
be too hard to challenge this year, and we should review this?
Well, actually, we didn't do it because we anticipated that 2022 will be a tough year, as we anticipated that 2023 will be a tough year. So we had reasonable targets. And I have to say thanks to the leasing companies, because it was them supporting us to see where we can save money, where there will be an increase, etc. So we don't have a crystal ball, but at least we could forecast 22 would have been a challenging year, and as it will be in 23, there will be no Santa Claus in 22 saying yes, 23 will be a better year. Definitely not. So we anticipate a lot, and the top management is aware of it.
Hmm. Talking about 2023, so you are quite pessimistic in terms of the evolution of the TCO for 2023, Guillaume? Or do you think that there will be better days in front of us?
Well, yes, I mean, I don't know if I'm pessimistic or realistic, but I don't think 23 will be a better year. I think the price will, the best would be they will stay as they are in 22, or maybe they will rise. I guess they will rise in 23. Uh, so I would say that's the situation, I'm afraid. I believe 24, 25 will be better, but today
Mhm.
it's complicated. When we look at Ukraine and Russia, when we look at China and Taiwan, maybe I'm pessimistic at the end, I'm not realistic, but at least I'm telling my top management we need to be very careful when we're talking about the savings in the next 12 months.
Okay. What is your main tip for global fleet managers, international fleet managers in managing the TCO next year?
Um, I mean, rely on your partners and suppliers, and always rely as well on the local fleet managers. And then try to forecast as you can potential changes, because when you see the changes, it's too late. So you need to forecast them and to start now what will impact in 6 months, 9 months, or even 12 months.
Okay. Good. Zoltán, one last question, very short for you. What would be your main tip in managing TCO to your peers? Yes. What is your main tip to your peers for managing the TCO?
Reviewing the cost elements, so potentially work with open book calculations connected to the fleet, and being committed towards shaping and basically being part of the transformation what the whole industry is ongoing. Creating a clear message internally that these are not normal times at the moment.
Okay. Thank you. Guillaume, what is the most difficult region to manage when it comes to TCO?
Uh, well, I mean, in Schindler, because most of the fleet is in Europe, and
Mhm.
we are suffering, I would say, more than other zones, the the Ukraine-Russia war, then I would say Europe is challenging right now because the cost impact is huge. So I would say yes, Europe for
Mhm.
Schindler
Uh,
today.
Zoltán also talked about open book calculation. Is that something that you have thought about to introduce also in other regions and countries where you are still working, for example, in more closed framework? Guillaume?
Sorry, you're talking to me.
Yes,
I say, I
you.
say.
Yes.
Yes. I mean, today we have open calculations in the US, so we
Hmm.
take the risk for the result value, but I don't believe we are going to review the close calculation model in the rest of the world. We like to see what would be the cost for the next 48 months when we have a lease contract. So no, we are not going to review our business model. Close calculation will remain our main business model in Europe, in LATAM, in APAC, and then in the US, we are going to keep open calculation at this stage.
Okay. Guillaume, do we see you at the Global Fleet Conference 2023 in Cascais next year?
I would be very happy to join. And actually, at the beginning, you were saying that I know everything. Unfortunately, I don't know everything. I still learn from my peers. So, yes, I will be there to share my knowledge, but as well to receive knowledge from peers. So, yes, you
Okay.
can count on me.
Okay. Zoltán, can I count on you for next year?
From my perspective, 100%. I hope also get the approvals, but definitely I would aim to join and take part of this global fleet conference next year as well.
Thank you. Thank you very much, guys. Thank you, Zoltán Sziller of INGKA. Thank you, Guillaume de Subercasaux of Schindler. Have a nice conference and a nice afternoon. Thank you. Bye
Thank
bye.
you.